We've got other countries' news channels talking about the UK, talking about how we allow the mass rape of our children. If we've got some decent journalists in the country, they should be digging deep into this now because there's some scalps to be had here. The lid now is firmly off the jar. Elon Musk has made it international news. We've got other countries' news channels talking about the UK, talking about how we allow the mass rape of our children. If we were a different country, our parliament would be saying we need to apply sanctions on that country because they keep raping their own children. But this is the UK now. This, I think, has got a very good chance of not only bringing down this government, but heavily damaging the Tory party, who are just as guilty. And they're using it now as an attack line on Labour when they've just come out of 14 years in power. The Tories I still despise the Tories, but this could bring down the government. I have no idea where this is going to go. If we've got some decent journalists in the country, they should be digging deep into this now because there's some scalps to be had here. If we can find out what Keir Starmer knew when he was the boss of the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, anything can happen now. We're in a world now where tomorrow the government could be gone. A year from now, it could be gone. We're just waiting for that one little straw that breaks the camel's back.
Definitely. The problem is, how do we find out what Starmer knew or what he didn't know? There are people willing to whistleblow because we've seen recently Rupert Law's managed to get whistleblowers from the Home Office and things like that. So there are people willing to whistleblow on these people. Hopefully, there are enough people with a bit of moral backbone to actually do this. But if there's people willing to whistleblow and tell the truth, why have they not done it yet? Why has nobody come forward yet? You're absolutely right. This is the kind of thing that could definitely bring this government down, which is, as we said at the beginning, this is the reason they don't want the inquiry in the first place, because any public inquiry, whether Labour like it or not, would have to speak to all these victims, or as many as possible. It would have to also delve into the higher ups, your police chiefs, your council chiefs, social workers, civil servants who are in charge of this sort of thing. I'm guessing that falls under the health remit. Who's in charge of all this stuff? That means chief constables again, all these senior people, senior civil servants and social workers, and then they would have to investigate also why didn't the CPS go after a lot of these people. I mean, one thing we failed to mention was Starmer's desperate line that we've seen so many times, wasn't it? Once again, if you care about young girls being raped in this country, you are jumping on the bandwagon of the far right. And that was Starmer's words. Never was such not just a morally bankrupt statement made, but what he's managed to just annoy the entire country once again. He's now saying that if you're concerned about these girls, how they were treated, the life sentences effectively that all these girls have been given through their experiences, you're part of the far right. And that is the last line of defense for people like Starmer. They still believe that they can say far right and everybody will wince. Whereas now the phrase is used that much that I get called it all the time. Now it's just Waterford up's back. Couldn't give a toss. I wear it as a badge of honour. Call me what you like. Honest to God, that for me was the last line of defence. We've even seen a little bit of softening on the language as well. I don't know if you heard Jess Phillips saying, well, there could be room for an inquiry if the victims want it. Yet they're saying what do you mean if the victims want it? Of course they want it. Labour don't want them to have their say. They don't want them to have their day in court, because then it will expose all these people, all of the establishment that ignored it and sacrificed these girls on the altar of a utopian multicultural society that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Being called far right has been the playbook for decades and decades, and they just don't realise that the playbook doesn't work anymore now. It's run out of steam, and saying that now just annoys everybody when who isn't concerned about the rape of any child, regardless of nationality, regardless of where they are in the world. Nobody can ever justify that. And I think he's just digging himself a bigger hole.